Good evening and welcome back. Please join us for Finding Feet in the World of Books with Shantanu Sharma, Pamela Sinha, and Nithya Sashi, moderated by Anjali Kirpalani. Dr. Shantanu Sharma is an author and entrepreneur. He is presently a strategic consultant for healthcare and head operations and strategy for Woodbox Enterprises. He has published two books before this, out of which one was a fiction novel and one a non fiction book about prevention of back pain. With two published novels under her belt, Pamela Sinha balances her passion for writing with her day job as a software project manager. As a Bengali with roots in Mumbai, married to a Rajasthani, and currently living in the USA, her writing is greatly influenced by her own rich experiences. Nithya Sashi is a best selling author and book reviewer from Chennai. To earn some paper currency, she slogs at a day job creating e learning courses and manages to balance her remaining personal time between her family and her writing assignments. She has written two romance titles and several short stories. Anjali Kirpalani is best-selling author of 19 Till I Die, Written in the Stars, and Never Say Never, and Tinseltown Affair. She is also a screenwriter and public speaker. Anjali has been an RJ, anchor with ET Now and She the People TV, and the editor of StyleCandy.com, a fashion portal. The discussion will be led by Anjali Kirpalani, and I request her to begin the session, please.
Okay. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction and welcome to all my panelists. I look forward to this conversation that we're going to be having. So, considering we're talking about how all of us sort of found our feet in this world of publishing, could each of you, perhaps we can start with Pamela, could each of you just take us through briefly through your journey and, how you actually began writing and how you got published?
Sure. Thank you, Anjali, and welcome to all our listeners. I'm so excited to be here today. Um, for writing, I think I've been writing ever since I can remember. My first thing that I remember I wrote was a four-line poem in back in elementary school. So I have always dabbled in poetry, short stories, but I never really wrote a full-length novel till I think it was back in somewhere around 2010, 11. Started writing, and for my first book, it was more of the stars aligning to the correct phase, and I was able to get a publishing deal. Unfortunately, life happened in between, and things got delayed, and it was not until again recently, just before the pandemic hit, I wrote my second novel and I got a deal with Vishwakarma. It took a lot of patience because thanks to the pandemic, the publishing dates got delayed, and finally in 2022, I was finally got my book, my latest book at Summer's End in my hand. So yeah, it's been a interesting journey, and again, part of it was thanks to the literary agency, the book bakers, that I was able to get published. Uh, there is a lot of patience, there's a lot of work involved in that, but ultimately with the book, I think it all depends on how it is received, and I'm glad that it was picked up by Vishwakarma Publications, and we have it in front of us. So pretty much
Yeah.
that's in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think it always is, about the stars aligning in some way, right? I
Yeah,
think
there
everyone
is
feels
always
that
a
way.
measure of luck. You
Yeah,
have your hard work, you have your efforts, you have your baby, which is your book, but there's always a modicum of luck involved in it. So, yeah,
for
I think it
sure.
just worked
Yeah,
out.
I can attest to that as well. So, Shantanu, could you tell us? I mean, do you also feel there was this element of luck? Did you get a lot of rejection, or did you sort of find the journey fairly smooth?
Well, I think it was definitely lucky. I'm yet to meet an author who did not have to send it to at least 20 different publishers before they got published. I'm yet to meet one.
Yeah.
Um, I I hope I get to meet someone. I would want to take some very important tips, but For me, I agree completely with what Pamela said. I think it's a lot of destiny. It's a lot of luck. I think all of us write really well. It's just that some of us are fortunate enough to find people who bring things together for you, and you get
Yeah,
published. And for me, I think it was the same thing. I think I sent it to around there were at least 35 emails for sure, on
yeah,
out of which most of them did not get a reply. Some of them were sorry. But I finally got to meet Suhail, and he helped me get published for the first time. And ever since, I fully trust what he says. And I think you need to find the right community more than anything else when you are
yeah,
writing. Um I have now completed three books. The fourth one also I've given recently, and the community is everything. You have to find the right mix of people who can appreciate what you do, and that really helps you get published. So destiny for sure is something that plays a role.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, Nithya, I mean, do you have a similar journey? How many rejection letters did you kind of get, and did you save them? Nithya? Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Hi, everyone. So, as Shantanu said, destiny played a big role in my literary journey also. So, I got around 103 rejection letters. So, I used to write all these pitch letters to everybody, any small, big, every publisher I knew from the internet. But then somebody, I think it was Neil Silva from he writes horror stories. He's a very famous person. So he
Yeah.
suggested that I should reach out to Suhail. And then Suhail gave me a lot of tips, and it was then just, the stars were aligned, as Pamela said very correctly. So then
Yeah.
it has been a very smooth journey after that. So I'm expecting my book to be released quite soon. Uh,
Okay, congrats.
yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
much.
Great. So, now coming to the actual content and, what we all actually write about. So, I think, all of you, relationship dynamics are quite important in all of your books, especially when it comes to talking about the main couple and, how their relationship sort of gets affected by things happening around them. So, do you guys do, and we could probably start with Shantanu here, but, do you plan the relationship dynamics for each book? I mean, how does it sort of work? If you could take us through that aspect of it.
Um, Actually, there's no set plan that I hold in the beginning. You have some sort of have some sort of a roadmap in play. You have some sort of framework that you are working on. But as far as this goes, I think it has a lot to do, and I don't know how many authors will agree. It has a lot to do with what is going on in your life as well, because
Right.
you are evolving over a period of time, and the
Mhm.
longer you take to write a book, it gets more and more convoluted and more difficult to take ahead. Um,
Yeah.
as far as individual relationships inside the story are concerned, I like to hold on to one particular plot and then build around it. And of course, there are subplots happening, different things happening to people who are in the center and then around them. But the central core relationship has to be something that holds on the reader. Otherwise, that
Right.
then becomes just another thing, and that you can't lose sense of what the story is about. And for me, relationships are the main thing that I write about, whether it's a fiction novel or even a non-fiction novel. The relationships are most important in a story. So, and that's
Yeah.
what holds you as a reader or as a viewer these days. You connect to things that are happening on screen, which you feel कि हाँ ये मेरे साथ भी हो चुका है. So those are
Correct.
things you want to hold on to, and those are mostly relationships. Those are not
Yeah.
events per se. So I like to hold it in that view. I don't have a full detail of what will happen when, but I let it evolve over a period of time.
Right. Okay. And Pamela, do you have a similar approach, or do you sit and plan everything before you write?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much similar. Again, similar to Shantanu. I also, my books, the core central idea is relationships, right?
Yes.
The complex human relationship, because I'm fascinated by it. When I see
Hmm.
people around me, and as Shantanu said, there is so much similarity and yet so much differences about how every person approaches a particular situation. So even for my latest book, Summer's End, the core conflict of the book, pretty much the driving force of the book, is the relationship between a husband and wife. The strained relationship between them, and where the wife is not only emotionally but also financially dependent, yet there is a distance between them. That is
Yeah.
the driving force, the thread that actually binds the entire story together. And as Shantanu also mentioned, that there are subplots, there are sub relationships of the protagonist with her family members, with her parents, her sister, her in-laws. All these things kind of relate to that main central idea. No again, I will, when I write, I start with this main idea. Okay, I have the story about this husband and wife, and then I probably have, okay, this is how it will probably progress, and but it keeps on evolving as I write.
Mhm.
I feel that the characters are not behaving the way they should be, or I am not writing them the way they
They take
are.
on a life of their own.
Yeah, so as I believe that it's true that when authors say that oh, I wanted to write this, but the character made me do that, and it
Yeah.
happens because you realize that what you're not doing justice to your character in
Mhm.
some places,
Mhm.
and then you have to kind of change. But yeah, the same central core relationship does kind of bind it all together, so that usually remains unchanged for me.
Yeah. Okay. And Nithya, I mean, could you take us through your sort of emphasis on relationships in your books as well?
So, for me, relationship dynamics play an important role. So, when I'm talking about dynamics, it is like in my latest book, uh, the dynamics between the main couple, they are very, I wouldn't say strained, I would rather say volatile. So, in the beginning, they
Mm.
are very volatile and they keep arguing about stuff. But over a period of time, they mature as a couple, and their arguments become more empathetic. They become compassionate towards each other. So when they do that, they have empathy in their thoughts when they argue, and they are able to understand each other well. So the dynamics play out very well towards the end. And
Okay.
to me, that is how, even in real life, that is how we sort out issues, right? So we become
Mm.
empathetic towards others, be it boss or a colleague or peers or husband wife or siblings, any relationship for that matter. When we become empathetic towards others, we are able to sort out issues or see things in a different light. So
Yeah.
that is one core idea in my books. So that is something that I think it is very important. Yeah.
Yeah. And as important as relationships are, of course, there's also the central theme as well as the social subjects that you're dealing with. So, Nithya, I think you've dealt with Naxalism in one of your books, and that is obviously a very difficult topic. It's quite not a lot of people have sort of gone there. So, did you do a
Yeah.
lot of research for that? How did you sort of work on that?
Um, so, Anjali, actually, let me just give you a little bit of context. So,
Yeah.
when I was growing up, we used to live in the coal mines. So, in those
Mm.
areas bordering Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, or Bengal, there was a lot of Naxal movement at that time. I'm talking about 70s, 80s. So
Right.
I was witness to many incidents.
Mm.
As a child, it looked very exciting or interesting to me, but obviously it was very dangerous. You could lose your life or something. But in the backyard, so we used to live in one colony, and in those short settlements, there were people who used to make bombs, crude bombs and all that, and these bombs would go off. And these were things that we would actually witness. I don't know how many people actually see all this, and
Yeah.
they are witness to all these things. But it was very exciting, and all these incidents, they stayed in my mind. So when I was
Mm.
writing this book, I had to understand more about the history of the Naxal movement and the Naxalites. So I read a lot on the internet. I read some books about Naxalism, and I had to get a holistic picture about the entire plot. So only then I was able to write and give, I was able to do justice to the whole theme.
Right. Wow. Okay. And yeah, so speaking about, your social setting sort of affecting your writing, Pamela, you live outside of India, and I think your book is also based, set outside of India. So what experiences that you've had, personally living as an Indian, as an NRI, as Indian living outside of India, have you sort of incorporated in your writing?
um Well, there is, of course, I do write based on, as I mentioned, my experiences, the experiences of people around me. So, and it's a huge culture shock. Like when you move from India to, say, the
Oh,
US,
yes.
totally different ball game. So it's like, so there, I mean, some of the obvious things are like the descriptions, the places where we go, trying to bring it out. And apart from that, I've also tried to address some of the challenges that happen, that take place. We have like the visa restrictions, for example, that uh, plays a very important role in the story. So that's where I've tried to bring out those specific instances of how, how it impacts you when you are not able to work because your visa, you don't have a work permit, or how friends become like family over here because you do not have that social support.
Yes.
So some of these things, and even small things, like how even ordering a cup of coffee can be difficult because the barista is not able to understand your accent, or the specific words that you use are not so familiar over here, especially coming
Mhm.
from India, where we are more used to the British English, and here the American English, which you would think it shouldn't be that big of a deal, but it is.
Yeah,
So
it is.
yeah, so those small things uh, that I've tried to write. Again, my book is based partly in India and partly in the US, so there
Mhm.
is that small difference in the two, which I've tried to bring out to the descriptions. For example, when I said in Arizona, and I have compared the scenario to like multigrain bread, because that's what I felt like when I saw it. Those, so it looked like that to me. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So
things
that's
like that.
actually something I can quite relate with because I moved to South Africa and I lived there for 8 years as well. And I moved at the age of 13. So people weren't, the people in school weren't that accepting of people from outside. So
Yeah,
what you're talking about, people not understanding your accent. And in South Africa, there's actually so many races that each race has their own accent. So it was
yeah.
even tougher than, just going to a place where everyone speaks in this one accent. So
Mhm.
yes, I completely relate to that, and of course, and being away from home and missing, family, missing the familiarity of home, is
Yes.
something that anyone who sort of moved out of India would relate to. So yes, and now moving on to Shantanu, you've actually written fiction as well as non-fiction. So not many authors kind of do both. So if you had to sort of choose, do you enjoy creating sort of a new world, or writing on something that's already happened, and do you enjoy the world of fiction more or the world of reality?
So it's very difficult to choose, Anjali, because it's like you. So my first book was more fiction oriented. It was a fully fiction oriented book, and it was something you had to think about and start from scratch. The second one was a non-fiction on back pain, in which I was helping people understand how to prevent back pain. The third one again now is a fiction novel, which is very different from the first one, and these are all very different stories. So it's very difficult for me to pick out which one I prefer over the other. uh, Non-fiction is definitely easier, if I may. The only challenge in that is that you need to be very solid about your research. Not that fiction can be just written without research, but the non-fiction needs a lot more detailed research. Um, Fiction is truly the love of my life. I love telling stories, and I am very imaginative like that, and that is definitely one place where I feel that I'm able to do more justice to the stories, which is why non-fiction I stick to what I'm very sure about. I stick to what I know. I Being a physiotherapist by education, I understand things like back pain. And even my next non-fiction book that I'm writing now is on back pain. So I stick to
Mhm.
things I can't really go wrong or mess around. My real, if you ask what do I prefer between two, difficult to choose. But if you put a gun to my head, I'll say fiction,
Yeah,
because I, that is internally what I am. I like to do that sort of storytelling, and putting things out there which people can relate to.
yeah,
Non-fiction, I think, is something that should be helping people lead better lives, and that's what I try to do. Um,
yeah.
it is a challenge. You said it rightly. It's a challenge dabbling between fiction and non-fiction, uh, but it's not that difficult. It's just that you have to separate the two parts of your head, and I'm sure all fiction writers can understand that there's always a story going on in your head, and there's a life going on in front of you. You need to separate it. Uh, that's the only thing I try to do when I write either kind of books.
Yeah, yeah, I completely relate with the love for fiction writing, because I think the creative freedom, obviously, that you get when you're writing fiction is, not, you can't take those kind of liberties with non-fiction. But yeah, I think you do a great job balancing both. So well done. And so now, for a lot of our viewers watching and people who actually want to become writers, I think it's a very, for all of us, we have a, when you're someone who's just writing your first manuscript, you have a very different idea of what it will be like when your book is out there and what it is like to be a writer, right? And once you become a writer, there are many things that you kind of learn on the job, so to speak. So, for everyone watching, what are some tips that you would sort of like to give for any of our budding writers out there? Just tips that you would like to share. Something that maybe perhaps you wish you would have known before you started. We can start with Pamela.
Sure. Um, so I think one thing that I would like to say, it's not something that I wish I had known before I started, but I have realized as I go along that when we write, we often feel, oh, if you're writing with the end in mind that okay, I need to get published, you might be tempted to kind of go into the rabbit hole where you try to write what the reader might want to read. I do
Mm-hmm.
feel that you should write the story you have. Yeah, and of course there are people around the way. Once you get a publishing deal, there are editors who help you, and I have seen this. They help with the small things which we might have missed. But
Yeah.
writing the story that you have is, you are more faithful to it, you will probably do a better job at writing the story you want to tell rather than the story you think the readers should be reading, right? Or the readers would like to read rather. So being true to yourself, I think, goes a long way, because at the end of the day, it's for me it is the fact that I have written this book, I've completed this book. That is the one that thing that makes me the happiest. Of course, getting it published is like a dream come true, and there is no taking away from the happiness that brings. But the fact that I
Yeah.
was able to write the story that I wanted to tell, I think that is very important. So holding on to that piece is something I would definitely recommend everyone to do.
Okay. And Nithya, I mean, what is your advice for budding writers out there? Nithya, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
So, to me, keeping the thing very simple, I have seen some books where there are too many layers or too many complex subjects. They talk about too many things at the same time. So, keeping it simple is very important, so that you deal with one, close it, and then go on to the next one. Uh, so the reader, you can't imagine that the reader will understand the same thing that it is going on in your head, unless it is very simple and it is written very simply. So that is one point, that keep the writing very simple and deal with subjects one by one. And number two is, do your research very properly, because there are things that we can get off the internet, or you can get by talking to other people who have been in an incident or something, so that you get your facts right. So doing research is very very critical, I think. So before you start writing, maybe it is good to jot down things in a note paper or on a notepad, and then you go around writing before writing.
Great. That makes a lot of sense. Some solid advice there. And yeah, Shantanu, I mean, considering now you've written fiction and non-fiction, what are your tips for our writers out there?
Patience is definitely one of the top tips I give to anybody who wants to write. You need to be very patient. You need to persist. You need to be at it. It To a lot of people, it sounds very, very. It looks very glamorous to be a writer. To कि आप author हो यार, आपकी book published है. It may feel very glamorous, but it still requires a lot of persistence. It requires a lot of patience, because getting published will take your sweat and blood for sure. And Everybody who has been published and who's been published more than once will know this, that getting published is not the end of the road.
Yeah.
Is just one milestone in your journey. You need to do more, you need to keep going. um, it doesn't end at getting the book published, and it feels great, and every book you get published will feel great for sure.
Yeah.
But you need to persist, you need to be patient and stay at it. And I really agree with both Pamela and Nithya in that you should write what you want to write. You write what is you be you. Don't try
Yeah.
to think this will work, this will not work. Ultimately, whatever you write with your heart will come out good. People may read it, people may not read it, but at least you will have the satisfaction that, yeah, what I wrote made sense to me. So that's important. So just those two three things, that patience, persistence, write what you really want to write, and don't don't leave it. Stay at it when you want to
Yeah.
write.
Oh, yes. Persistence and patience. I think, yeah, that's definitely very, very important. I think there's that we all, reach that point in our manuscript where you just kind of want to uh, scream and kind of like run away and just be like, oh my God, I cannot do this. And the funny thing is, you would think that once you have a few books down your belt, you would be able to write like a pro. But as we all know, it's never like that, right? Each book is different. You've got to kind of make it come together, and that it can feel very daunting sometimes, even for seasoned authors. So yes. um so yeah, and I think as much as we all want to write the stories we want to write, and we want to be authentic and true to ourselves, the fact is that books, and you as an author also kind of what's important is that the books do sell, because we've written a great book but it's not selling and people are not reading it. That obviously is not something that any author would want. So how much time and effort do you kind of put, each of you can take that, how much time and effort do you actually put towards the marketing of your book? And is it something that is ongoing constantly while you're writing your next books as well? And just how much of your time and effort goes into marketing your work? We can start with Pamela.
Yep. Um, I think it's ongoing. I mean, nowadays it's especially on social media. If you are not there, you're pretty much not visible anymore. That's a lesson I have learned. I am still learning. I'm not saying that I'm a pro at it or anything. So anything, it's like how you name drop at parties. It's like you book name drop wherever you go. So you need to learn how to not be shy about yourself, which is very difficult. I'm an introvert typically. I find it very challenging to talk about myself, let alone something that I have achieved. So I went to a book festival here in the US, and I was sitting we were kind of pitching our books to the. It was like a people had come in, and we were trying to pitch our books to make a sale kind of thing. And the person in front of me, and she was great. She would be like everything. She's calling people, she's talking to them. So the course of that 5-6 hours, I started picking out those things up, and I started trying to pitch myself. And so the main point is you need to be out there any way you
Yeah.
can. If it is social media, if it is in person, whatever is possible, keep bringing up your books in conversation. Tell people that you have written, because there will always be people who get intrigued by it, who if they take up your book and read the blurb or read the first couple of pages, and they might just get interested, because you don't know what captures the reader's imagination. So but you just need to keep that in front of everyone. Just keep talking about it, keep sharing posts relevant to it or whatever. So yeah, it's absolutely an ongoing process.
Yeah, for sure. And Nitya, do you agree with that? I mean, what is your take on marketing your book?
Yeah, it is an ongoing process. But while I'm writing, I don't think about the promotions, because then it tampers with the flow of the story, or you start thinking about what will the reader like to read, or something like that. So I don't do the thinking about the marketing thing when I'm writing. So after I have written, I take a break. So after the first book, I took a break and thought about how to market it, how to tell my friends, what to say to them. And so it was mostly word of mouth, and I told my friends that I have written a book, why don't you read it? So it was so like Pamela, I'm also an introvert, and I hate doing all this I don't know how to sell myself. So it was very challenging, and I had to see other people doing it, and I was like, wow, they are really natural at it. Some people, they are
Yeah.
really so good at it. You think maybe I should take a class or two. So so social media is a great tool if you use it effectively. And social media, like Insta posts or reels or talking about it, putting up short videos. So these things I have been planning to do for my current book. For my previous book, I just wrote some Facebook posts and Insta reels, and that's all. I didn't do much because at that time I was not very aware of doing the promotions myself. So actually, before I signed up with the book bakers, I didn't even know that the author has to promote their book by themselves. And I thought
Yeah.
the publisher will do all the hard work. Why should I bother?
Yeah.
I have already done the hard work. I
Yeah.
sit back and
That's
relax,
something
and
we all
they
find
will
out in
publish.
the hard way. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. And yeah, I mean, Shantanu, do you agree with the importance of marketing your work? What is your take on this?
I think I hinted at it when I said that your work doesn't end at the book getting published. There is still a lot of work after that, but marketing your book and promoting it is an uphill struggle, I think, for a lot of us. I won't say all of us. Some of us, it comes very naturally. But to most of us, it's not a natural part of the process because we write what we feel, we write. Um, our emotions are more in the written word, and that's what we are good at. So that's why I think promoting a book is a challenge for a lot of us. It's an uphill struggle, and I still don't know what is the best marketing tool for me, whether it is social media, whether it is going to talks, or whether it is going to panel discussions, or whether it is just asking my friends and family to promote. Is it to have a book reading? Is it to put my book on crossword or somewhere else? I still don't know,
Yeah.
because there is no one fixed formula which has been proven by someone. So it's a lot of mix and match, and I've seen a lot of people succeed on social media and do it. I struggle with it, um, because I think all of us have full-time jobs that we are doing along with the writing. So it takes up a lot of our energy and bandwidth. But marketing your book is tricky, because you have,
Yeah.
and this is something I learned through my interactions with other authors, that you have to do a pre-sales promotion, that this book is coming. Then when your book is there, you have to announce that the book is there. Then after the book is there, you have to put out reviews of the book, and then you have to ask people to review it on Amazon and review it here and review it on Goodreads.
Yeah.
It takes effort, and I would say that it's not, I won't say it's stressful effort. It is something that you are doing for your own good, and I encourage a lot of people to do that. And I would definitely say that you should spend a lot of time promoting your book, because something you've written, and if it is good and people are not reading it, then what was the point?
Yeah.
So I do believe a lot of time should be given to marketing. I don't give enough. I'm trying to give more, and I hope I succeed someday.
Yeah, I think well said. It is a mix and match, of course, and I like to believe that word of mouth does make a difference. But of course, it needs to first be out there for the initial lot of people to pick it up to then spread the word about the book. So yes, I agree that and I think you're right in saying that I think none of us really knows what exactly. There is no set formula that what is really going to help make a book a bestseller, but we're all just kind of figuring it out as we go along, and I think that is what the journey is about. But speaking about marketing, do you wish that publishers kind of spent more time marketing each individual book, or do you just think that that's not possible because of the range of books that they have? Do you think that enough publishers in India are doing enough for newer authors, or they could do more, say if you compare to publishers outside of India? And perhaps Pamela, you could start with that.
Yeah. Well, I don't really have so much experience with publishers outside India, but I think there has been a change between since the time my first book was released and this current book. Yeah, I think it's not feasible for them to put so much efforts on
Mm.
each and every book. But definitely there has been a lot of, we have these festivals, and
Yeah.
even being abroad, I am part of this panel today. So definitely those things help a lot. those things are being arranged, and we are out here, we are talking to each other, and there are so many other things. They do make a effort to support in every way they can, and I'm really grateful for that, because at the end of the day, as Shantanu said, we do have to do the hard work. Nobody knows this book better than us,
Yeah.
the person who has written it. But what we often need is a bit of a guide that, okay, this is what you can probably do. I know this is some avenue which you can explore. So that helps. And I think publishers are trying to do that. And as long as they continue to do that, that would definitely be a huge boost to every, budding and new and reasonably new authors out here.
Yeah. Yeah. And Nithya, I mean, do you have anything you'd like to add to this point?
Actually, some publishers do put out posts on Insta about the author's books, but
Yeah.
then it is not possible for them to promote each and every book. So I think they pass the baton to their authors and support them or give them ideas, like how I was talking to the editor from Vishwakarma. So she was giving me
Yeah.
ideas about how I can promote. So that is
Hmm.
the only thing that they can do, instead of stepping up and doing all the promotion themselves. So it is the onus is on the author to promote their book and talk about it, because as Shantanu rightly said, you have written it, you have done all the hard work. Now it is
Yeah.
in your best interest to sell it,
Yeah.
take it to the reader.
Yeah. It's your baby at the end of the day. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Shantanu, you did kind of touch on this, but I mean, is there anything else you'd like to add to this discussion about the marketing?
I really don't know about publishers around the globe, and but I like to believe and I like to have faith that the publishers are doing all that they can. In all
Yeah.
honesty, I mean, they're looking at scores of books every year, and all of us are authors here. There was a panel yesterday also, and day before yesterday. The entire PILF was filled with authors who published books, and there are so
Yeah.
many books being written all the time. It's very difficult for them to keep track and do it properly, because we may feel promotion and marketing is, yeah, promote my book, but if someone really wants to promote your book, they have to have a strategy around your book, do a couple of things, see what worked, what did not work, then make changes. I'm sure that the publishers are doing the best they can. Um, but like Pamela said in the beginning, I'm just grateful that they published it, and whatever they can do, I'm sure they're doing, because it's in mutual interest for both of us, right? So I'm sure
Yeah.
they're doing what they can. We just have to continue doing what we can.
Yeah. And now that, all of you have kind of been writing for a bit, have you seen any changes in the publishing industry in the, say, last 5 years? And, if so, what do you think has actually changed? And, perhaps Nithya, you could start with telling us your thoughts.
um, Yeah, Anjali, actually, what I have seen is nowadays there is a lot of focus on the author. They are more like entrepreneurs, they are probably what Suhail says, entrepreneurs. So
Yeah.
that is one change that I have seen. And another is the kind of content that is coming out. Earlier there were just a few names, but the kind of Indian writing that is emerging, that is really fabulous, and the market is just opened up, and there are readers reading all kind of content. So the scope is very wide, and you get really you have a lot of confidence in the readers, that whatever you are writing for them, they will read. And at least some a portion of the readers, they will read whatever you're writing. So that has changed, that idea that yes, there is a market for my kind of writing, or whatever I have, whatever thoughts I have, somebody is there out there who will read all that. So that kind of idea, that has changed, is what I feel. Because earlier there was only this kind of content was getting read, some really serious stuff. So nowadays you see there is so much fun content, people writing about shadis and so many things. Romance has also changed so much.
Yes.
So the books that are coming out are really fun and lively, cheerful. Earlier, it was kind of morose, and even the romance titles were so morose, and it was like sad, sorrow filled. So
Yeah.
nowadays all the books are so exciting, very nice. So that has changed, the whole idea has changed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. I mean, yeah, I think from the serious fiction, we now have readers have that option to choose from a variety of genres. And
Yes.
it is actually, if you look at when you go to a bookstore and you kind of read the kind of books that are coming out, you're right. There's like a gamut of topics. It's very interesting, and there's a lot of good writing out there now. So yeah, so that's true. Shantanu, I mean, anything you've in particular noticed, say in the last 5 years in how the publishing industry has changed?
I think like every industry, publishing has also evolved. The consumer has changed, and we have to understand that the consumer of content has changed, and the attention spans have reduced significantly. Your plot can't keep getting built on for like 7 chapters. You would have read books earlier in which the plot was just building for the first five,
Mm.
six chapters. If you do
Yeah,
that today, your book will not be read by people because
true.
nobody has the time for you to build a plot, then build a story, then bring character, then bring this. People don't have the patience for that anymore. Publishing in itself has also evolved. There's a lot of non-fiction happening. There is I don't like it, but there's a definite shift from fiction towards non-fiction. A
Mm.
lot of my friends, a lot of people I know directly don't read fiction anymore. They only read non-fiction because there is so much fiction content available on Netflix or Amazon or
Yeah,
Z or any place
the
else.
OTT
There's a lot of
platforms. Yeah.
fiction because
Mm.
ultimately it's all content, right? Earlier you did not have a lot of visual options, so you were reading. Now you have a lot of options there, and a lot of non-fiction content is still not there on channels like this. So that's why you read books on non-fiction. So the overall environment has evolved a little bit, and as authors, we need to be cognizant of it. We need to understand that what is happening, and I'm sure the publishers also understand it. The publishers are very clear about taking up stories now. I think that has
Yeah.
happened to a great degree. Uh, COVID definitely pushed a lot of things back, but the publishers have also bounced back now, and they are being very particular about what they want and what they don't want. I think it's a mix of plus and minus for authors as such, but we just have to accept things the way they are right now.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. And Pamela, I mean, I think Nithya and Shantanu kind of did sort of really give us a good picture of where we are in terms of, what has changed. But is there anything that you've noticed that you'd like to add to this?
Well, kind of playing off on both their points, right? That the consumer is very discerning now. They know what they want. They hold the author to much higher standard. Whether it is how you write, what is it that you are writing. So being cognizant of that, because I've seen so many people. If you see the reviews, people will take up a book on, say, Amazon, ebook, and they will give the review that. And even I've done that. That I start reading and the writing is not good or the editing is not good, and
Mm.
it's an immediate turn off. So you might have an
Yeah,
awesome book, but the reader wants something they can really sink their teeth into. So yeah, definitely there are greater standards because of so much content being available. You are always uh, have a huge competition against you, so you need to be aware of that. And again, I had said earlier that you should write what you want, but there is also the fact that you need to write it really well if you
yeah,
just to stand out in that sea of
correct.
uh, content that is available.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there is, as Shantanu said as well, there's so much content. I mean, you're not just competing with, other books out there, you're competing with the reader's attention, which is now diverted by, all the OTT content, etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this topic is obviously something that we could all sort of keep chatting about and keep talking. I think between the four of us, I'm sure have a lot of stories, and as every author does. So, but I think we are running out of time now. So I would like to sort of close this discussion. But I just think that I think in this short amount of time, I've learned a lot just speaking with you, and I'm sure our viewers have also learned a lot. And for anyone who wants to write, I think all the authors here are a living example that you can do it. But as Shantanu said, persistence, patience, and you will figure it out. You will find your feet if this is what you truly want to do. So yes, may people keep writing, may people keep reading, and as someone who loves fiction, as much as the non-fiction is kind of gaining importance and popularity, I do hope we have a lot more fiction readers as well. So yeah, with that, I'd like to thank each one of you. I think you all brought some wonderful insights. So thank you so much. It's been lovely chatting with all of you. And if any of you have any closing comments that you'd like to add, please feel free to do that.
Yeah,
I
I
would
think.
really want
Yes,
to. Sorry, Pamela.
sorry, go ahead. I think we just jumped in at the same time. Go ahead, please.
No, no, I would really want to thank PILF for giving this opportunity for sure, and for Vishwakarma for publishing at least my book, and giving us this forum. I think it's a very humbling thing for me personally. I feel honored that I get this sort of a forum to talk on, um, and I just hope that everyone keeps reading and keeps writing. Thank you.
Yeah, pretty much echoing the same. This is an awesome platform and the chance to meet and speak with all of you on such an interesting topic. I mean, this is worth my getting up at, say 5:30 in the morning and getting ready here in the US.
You
So
appreciate you doing that. And,
no, but I
um,
mean, I was so excited about this, and I'm really, glad to have been a part of this forum. So my thanks to PILF, to Vishwakarma, and the book bakers for getting me to this position where I am, able to be on this prestigious platform and interact with all of you. So yeah, thank you.
thanks.
So
Yeah.
I would just take this moment to thank Vishwakarma, all of you, and book bakers, especially Suhail, that I could attend my first Lit Fest. I was so excited for the for past so many days that I'm going to attend the Pune Lit Fest. I was planning to go to Pune, but somehow it didn't happen. But this online panel, this show is amazing, and thank you so much for having me here. It was so fun talking to all of you.
Yeah, likewise. And thank you all of you and for taking your time out. And thank you PILF for giving us this opportunity to share our thoughts here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was a very interesting discussion. Thank you, Shantanu Sharma, Pamela Sinha, Nithya Sashi, and Anjali Kirplani for being such wonderful PILF guests. Our next session begins at 6:45 p.m. One of our most awaited session today, Cloud Money by Dipankar Mukherjee in conversation with Brett Scott. We thank our title sponsor Vishwakarma Publications, silver partner State Bank of India, bronze partner Bajaj Allianz, and our bookstore partner Crossword. Thank you. See you soon.